Maya Johnson walked into First National Bank on a busy Tuesday afternoon, clutching her father's business check tightly in her hand. At 17, she was tall for her age with natural hair pulled back in a neat bun and wore her school uniform, a crisp white shirt and navy skirt from Lincoln Preparatory Academy. The check was for $8,000, payment for her father's consulting work with a major corporation. He had asked her to deposit it while he was in meetings all day. The bank buzzed with activity. Customers stood in various lines, some at the teller windows, others waiting to speak with loan officers. Maya had been to this particular branch only once before, about 2 years ago with her mother. She remembered it being much quieter then. Today, the marble floors echoed with footsteps and conversations. Maya approached the teller line and waited, patiently behind an elderly man who was discussing his retirement account. When her turn came, she stepped forward to window number 3, where a middle-aged white woman with short blonde hair and bright red lipstick sat behind the glass partition. The nameplate read Jennifer Walsh, Senior Teller. "Good afternoon," Maya said politely, sliding the check through the window slot. "I'd like to deposit this into my father's business account, please." Jennifer looked at Maya with obvious skepticism, her eyes narrowing as she examined the teenager's appearance. She picked up the check and her eyebrows shot up when she saw the amount. $8,000 was clearly more money than she expected a young black girl to be handling. "Is this your check?" Jennifer asked, her tone sharp and suspicious. "It's my father's business check. I'm depositing it for him," Maya explained, maintaining her respectful tone despite feeling uncomfortable under the woman's intense stare. Jennifer held the check up to the light, examining it closely as if looking for signs of forgery. She turned it over several times, checking the signature and the bank routing numbers. Other customers in line began to notice the unusual amount of scrutiny being given to what should have been a simple transaction. "What kind of business does your father supposedly have?" Jennifer asked, emphasizing the word supposedly in a way that made Maya's cheeks burn with embarrassment. "He's a business consultant. He works with companies on financial planning and organizational development," Maya answered, trying to keep her voice steady. Jennifer scoffed audibly. "A consultant, right?" She looked at the check again, then at Maya's school uniform. "And he just sends his teenage daughter to deposit $8,000? That doesn't seem very professional to me." Maya felt her heart racing. Other people in the bank were starting to stare, as she could hear whispered conversations behind her. "My father is in important meetings today. He asked me to handle this for him. I have his account information and my identification. I'm going to need to see multiple forms of ID," Jennifer said, though bank policy only required one form of identification for deposits. "And I'll need to verify this check with the issuing company." Maya pulled out her driver's license and student ID from Lincoln Prep, sliding them through the window. Jennifer examined both cards with unnecessary thoroughness, comparing the photo to Maya's face multiple times as if she couldn't believe they matched. "Lincoln Preparatory Academy," Jennifer read aloud from the student ID. "That's an expensive private school. How does a family afford that kind of tuition?" The question was clearly inappropriate for a banking transaction, but Maya felt pressured to answer. "My father works very hard," Maya replied simply, though she felt she shouldn't have to justify her family's financial situation to complete a bank deposit. Jennifer made a show of typing slowly on her computer, claiming she was looking up the account information. "I'm not finding any account under the name on this check," she announced loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. Maya's confusion was genuine. "That's impossible. My father has banked here for over 10 years. The account number is right there on the deposit slip." "Maybe you have the wrong bank," Jennifer suggested with a smirk. "Or maybe this check isn't as legitimate as you're claiming it is." The word legitimate hung in the air like an accusation. Maya felt tears of frustration threatening to spill over, but she refused to cry in front of this woman who was clearly trying to humiliate her. She was aware that several other customers had stopped their own transactions to watch the scene unfold. "Could you please check again?" Maya asked, her voice smaller now. "The account number is 8472915503. It's a business account under Johnson Consulting Enterprises." Jennifer made an exaggerated show of typing the numbers, though Maya suspected she wasn't actually looking up anything. Still nothing, she declared. I think you need to leave now before I call security. Call security? Maya's voice cracked slightly. For trying to make a bank deposit? For trying to deposit what appears to be a fraudulent check, Jennifer said loudly. Ensuring everyone nearby could hear the accusation, Maya felt the blood drain from her face. Being accused of fraud was serious, and she knew that as a young black woman, she would be viewed with even more suspicion. This check isn't fraudulent. Please just call my father if there's a problem. I don't have time for these games, Jennifer replied. Either leave voluntarily or I'll have to ask our security guard to escort you out. Maya noticed a large white man in a security uniform had indeed moved closer to the teller window. He wore a stern expression and kept his hand near his radio. The situation was escalating beyond anything Maya could have imagined when she'd simply walked in to make a deposit. Please, Maya said one more time, desperation creeping into her voice. And just look up the account one more time. Oh, let me speak to a manager. The manager is busy with important clients? Jennifer replied dismissively. Not everyone gets to waste his time. Maya felt completely helpless. She had done nothing wrong, yet she was being treated like a criminal. The other customers continued to stare, some shaking their heads in what appeared to be disapproval, though she couldn't tell if they disapproved of her supposed fraud or of Jennifer's treatment of her doc, just as Maya was, considering whether she should just leave and let her father handle this situation himself. She heard a familiar voice behind her. Maya? What's going on here? She turned to see Mrs. Patterson, her chemistry teacher from Lincoln Prep. Standing in line behind her, Mrs. Patterson was a well-dressed black woman in her 40s who commanded respect wherever she went. Maya had never been so happy to see a teacher in her life. Mrs. Patterson, Maya said, relief flooding her voice. I'm just trying to deposit my father's business check, but there seems to be some confusion. Mrs. Patterson stepped forward, her keen eyes taking in the situation immediately. She noted Jennifer's hostile expression, the security guard's proximity, and the way other customers were staring at Maya as a teacher at one of the city's most prestigious schools. Mrs. Patterson had seen discrimination before and recognized it instantly. What seems to be the problem? Mrs. Patterson asked Jennifer directly, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to dealing with difficult situations. Jennifer's demeanor changed slightly in the presence of another adult, but her hostility remained. This girl is trying to deposit what appears to be a fraudulent check for $8,000. I can't find any account information, and frankly, the whole situation seems suspicious. Mrs. Patterson raised an eyebrow. Fraudulent? That's quite an accusation. Have you thoroughly checked your system for the account? Of course I have, Jennifer replied defensively. I know how to do my job. Then perhaps you could show us exactly what you found, Mrs. Patterson suggested. And maybe we could speak to your supervisor about this situation. Jennifer's face reddened. She clearly hadn't expected to be challenged by another adult who wouldn't be easily intimidated. Like I told her, my manager is busy with important clients. I see, Mrs. Patterson said calmly. And you've determined that Maya here isn't an important client? Based on what criteria? The question hung in the air, and Maya could see that Mrs. Patterson was forcing Jennifer to confront her own biases. Other customers were now listening more intently to the conversation. I'm just following bank policy, Jennifer said weakly. Bank policy requires you to accuse teenagers of fraud without properly investigating their claims? Mrs. Patterson asked. Because that doesn't sound like standard banking procedure to me. Maya watched this exchange with growing amazement. Mrs. Patterson was calmly but firmly dismantling Jennifer's excuses, and the teller was clearly becoming flustered. Look, Jennifer said, her voice rising slightly, I don't have to explain my decisions to you. This is a private matter between the bank and this girl. Actually, Mrs. Patterson replied, when you make public accusations of fraud and threaten to call security, it becomes a very public matter. Maya is one of my students, and I can vouch for her character completely. Your student? Jennifer looked surprised. She goes to Lincoln Prep? Maya realized that Jennifer had seen her student ID but hadn't really processed what Lincoln Preparatory Academy represented. The school was known throughout the city as an elite institution where only the wealthiest families sent their children. Yes, she's one of our top students, Mrs. Patterson confirmed. And her father is a very successful businessman in this city. So perhaps you might want to reconsider your approach to this C. While Mr. Sterling and Jennifer Walsh held their urgent conversation in a corner office visible through glass walls, Maya watched their animated discussion with growing curiosity. The manager's face was red with what appeared to be anger, and he gestured emphatically while Jennifer stood with her shoulders hunched, looking smaller with each passing moment. Mrs. Patterson noticed the tension too. "Whatever your father's relationship with this bank is," she said quietly to Maya, "it's clearly more significant than a typical customer relationship." Maya had always known her father was successful, but she had never really understood the full extent of his business dealings. Marcus Johnson was often traveling for work, meeting with clients she knew little about. He owned a large house in the city's most exclusive neighborhood, sent Maya to the most expensive private school, and seemed to have unlimited resources for her education and activities. But he had always been modest about his achievements when she asked about his work. After 10 minutes that felt like hours, Mr. Sterling returned to the window alone. Jennifer was nowhere to be seen, and Maya wondered if she had been sent home or was simply too embarrassed to face them again. "Miss Johnson," Mr. Sterling began, his voice now completely different from before. Where there had been careful politeness, there was now obvious anxiety and what sounded like genuine fear. "I want to personally apologize for the treatment you received here today. Mrs. Walsh's behavior was completely inappropriate and does not reflect the values of First National Bank." Maya studied his face carefully. This wasn't the standard apology of a manager dealing with a customer service complaint. This was the desperate damage control of someone who realized they had made a catastrophic error. "Thank you," Maya said simply, though she sensed there was much more to this story. Mr. Sterling continued, his hands visibly shaking as he processed her deposit slip. "Your father's account is one of our most valued business relationships. The treatment you received today was inexcusable, and I want you to know that we will be taking immediate action to ensure nothing like this ever happens again." "What kind of action?" Mrs. Patterson asked, her teacher's instincts making her press for specifics. Mr. Sterling looked uncomfortable. "Mrs. Walsh will be receiving additional training on customer service and cultural sensitivity. We take these matters very seriously." Maya could tell he wasn't being completely honest about whatever disciplinary action Jennifer would face. Based on the intensity of their conversation she had witnessed through the glass walls, she suspected Jennifer's consequences would be much more severe than additional training. "How long has my father been banking here?" Maya asked, realizing she didn't actually know the details of his financial relationships. "Your father has been one of our premier clients for 12 years, Mr. Sterling replied. "Johnson Consulting Enterprises maintains several accounts with us, and your father serves on our business advisory board." This was news to Maya. Her father had never mentioned being on any advisory board for the bank. She was beginning to understand that there were aspects of her father's professional life that she knew very little about. "I see," Maya said, though she didn't really see it all. "And that makes me different from other customers. How exactly?" Mr. Sterling looked even more uncomfortable with this direct question. "Well, all of our customers deserve respectful treatment, of course. It's just that your father's relationship with the bank is particularly important to us." Mrs. Patterson raised an eyebrow. "Are you saying that some customers deserve better treatment than others based on how much money they have in their accounts?" No, that's not what I meant," Mr. Sterling backtracked quickly. "Every customer should receive excellent service regardless of their account balance." "Then why didn't Maya receive excellent service today?" Mrs. Patterson pressed. What was different about her transaction that justified Mrs. Walsh's behavior? Mr. Sterling opened and closed his mouth several times without speaking. He clearly couldn't answer honestly without admitting that Jennifer had profiled Maya based on her race and age. making assumptions about her family's financial status that were completely wrong. "There's no justification for what happened today," he finally said. "Mrs. Walsh made serious errors in judgment." While they talked, Maya noticed several other bank employees clustering near the manager's office, speaking in hushed tones and glancing in her direction. Word was clearly spreading throughout the branch about who she was and what had happened. She could see varying expressions of shock, embarrassment, and concern on their faces. "I'd like to complete my deposit now, please," Maya said, wanting to finish her business and leave this increasingly uncomfortable situation. "Of course," Mr. Sterling said, relief evident in his voice at being able to move on to something concrete. "Let me handle this personally." He processed the deposit with exaggerated care, checking and double-checking every detail as if the $8,000 check were the most important transaction in the bank's history. When he handed Maya the deposit receipt, his hands were still trembling slightly. "Is there anything else I can do for you today, Miss Johnson?" he asked. "Anything at all?" "Actually, yes," Maya said, a thought occurring to her. "I'd like you to explain to me exactly what Mrs. Walsh told me about my father's account not existing in your system." Mr. Sterling's face went pale again. "I'm not sure what you mean." "She claimed she couldn't find any account under the name on the check. She said she searched multiple times and found nothing. Either your computer system has serious problems or Mrs. Walsh was lying to me. Which is it?" The manager looked like he wanted to disappear. Mrs. Patterson watched this exchange with interest, clearly impressed by Maya's direct questioning. "I'm sure it was just a technical difficulty," Mr. Sterling said weakly. "Really?" Maya asked. "Because she seemed very confident that the account didn't exist. She accused me of trying to deposit a fraudulent check based on that search." "Are you telling me your computer system randomly fails to find accounts that contain hundreds of thousands of dollars?" Mr. Sterling's eyes widened. Maya had made an educated guess about the account balance based on her father's lifestyle and business success, and the manager's reaction confirmed she was in the right ballpark. "The technical details of our computer system are confidential," Mr. Sterling said, though his voice lacked conviction. "I understand," Maya replied. "But when your computer system malfunctions in a way that leads to a customer being accused of fraud and threatened with security, that seems like something that should be investigated thoroughly." Mrs. Patterson smiled slightly at Maya's persistence. She could see that her student was not going to let this matter drop easily. "Of course we'll investigate any technical issues," Mr. Sterling assured her. "We want to make sure all of our systems are working properly." "Good," Maya said. "And I assume my father will be informed about what happened here today?" This question seemed to terrify Mr. Sterling more than anything else she had asked. "Well, that's not necessarily required for a simple deposit transaction." "A simple deposit transaction?" Maya's voice rose slightly. "I was accused of fraud, threatened with security, and publicly humiliated by your employee. You think my father doesn't need to know about that?" "No, you're absolutely right, Mr. Sterling said quickly. "Your father should definitely be informed. We'll be reaching out to him personally to apologize and explain the situation." Maya could tell that Mr. Sterling was hoping to control the narrative when he spoke to her father, probably minimizing what had actually happened. She made a mental note to tell her father everything from her perspective before the bank had a chance to spin the story. "I think that's everything then," Maya said, folding her deposit receipt and putting it in her purse. "Wait," Mr. Sterling said urgently. "Before you go, I want to make sure you understand how sorry we are about this incident. Is there anything we can do to make this right? Any way we can ensure your continued satisfaction as a valued member of the First National Bank family?" Maya looked at him thoughtfully. "Actually, there is something." "Anything," Mr. Sterling said immediately. "I want Mrs. Walsh to personally apologize to me. Not a form letter or a message through you. I want her to look me in the eye and apologize for the way she treated me." Mr. Sterling looked like this was the last thing he wanted to arrange. "I'm not sure that Mrs. Walsh is quite upset about this incident. She might not be in the right frame of mind for a face-to-face conversation." "I see," Maya said coolly. "So she's upset? About what exactly?" About being caught treating a customer badly or about discovering that her assumptions about me were wrong. I just think it might be better to let things settle down before arranging any direct conversations, Mr. Sterling said diplomatically. Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Patterson interjected, Maya is asking for a basic apology from someone who wronged her. That's not an unreasonable request. Of course not, he agreed. It's just a matter of timing. Maya realized that Jennifer was probably either fired or suspended, and that the bank was trying to handle the situation quietly without admitting the extent of what had really happened. I understand, Maya said, but I want you to know that when I tell my father about this incident, I'll be including the fact that Mrs. Walsh wasn't available to apologize. Mr. Sterling looked ill. Maya's text to her father was simple but direct. The bank deposit didn't go smoothly. I was accused of fraud and threatened with security. Can you call me when you're free? Her father's response came back within 30 seconds. What? I'm leaving my meeting now. Don't move from wherever you are. Mrs. Patterson saw Maya's expression and raised an eyebrow. I take it your father is coming? He said he's leaving his meeting, Maya replied. I've never seen him respond to a text that fast. They decided to wait in Mrs. Patterson's car in the parking lot across from the bank. Through the large windows, they could see activity inside the branch that seemed more frantic than normal business operations. Employees were moving quickly between offices, and Maya spotted Mr. Sterling on what appeared to be a very intense phone call. Maya, Mrs. Patterson said gently, I want you to think about what you want to accomplish here. Your father is obviously a powerful man, and when powerful people get angry, sometimes the consequences can be more severe than the original offense deserved. Maya considered this. She was angry about how she had been treated, but she didn't want to ruin anyone's life over it. At the same time, she couldn't ignore the fact that Jennifer Walsh had publicly humiliated her based purely on racial assumptions. I just want them to understand that they can't treat people that way, Maya said. And I want Jennifer to apologize sincerely, not just because she got caught. 15 minutes later, a black Mercedes SUV pulled into the bank's parking lot with more speed than was probably safe. Maya recognized it as her father's vehicle, though she had rarely seen him drive with such urgency. Marcus Johnson stepped out of the car, and even from a distance, Maya could see the controlled fury in his movements. Marcus Johnson was an imposing figure, 6 feet, 3 inches tall with broad shoulders and the kind of presence that commanded attention in any room. He wore an expensive charcoal gray suit and carried himself with the confidence of someone accustomed to being the most important person in the building. Maya had always been proud of her father, but seeing him in professional mode was different from the relaxed dad who made pancakes on Sunday mornings. He strode toward the bank, entrance with purpose, and Maya saw several people inside notice his approach through the windows. She watched Mr. Sterling's face go completely white, and he immediately ended his phone call to hurry toward the front door. Should we go in? Maya asked Mrs. Patterson. Let's give your father a few minutes to assess the situation, Mrs. Patterson suggested wisely. I have a feeling he'll want to hear their version before he talks to you. Through the windows, they watched Marcus enter the bank. Every conversation in the lobby stopped as people turned to look at him. Mr. Sterling approached immediately, and even from outside, Maya could see that the manager was nervous. They spoke briefly before Mr. Sterling led Marcus toward the private offices in the back. Maya's phone rang. It was her father. Maya, honey, are you okay? His voice was tightly controlled, but she could hear the underlying anger. I'm fine. Dad, I'm sitting in Mrs. Patterson's car across the street with a clear view of the bank. Mrs. Patterson from school? Good, I'm glad you had support. I want you to stay right there while I handle this situation. I need to hear their version of events before I talk to you so I can compare their story to what really happened. Okay, Dad. Maya, I need you to promise me something. When I'm done here, I want you to tell me exactly what happened without leaving out any details. Can you do that? Yes, sir. Good girl. This will be over soon. As her father ended the call, Maya saw him through the bank windows, walking toward Mr. Sterling's office. Several other people in expensive suits had appeared and were joining the meeting. Maya realized these were probably senior executives from the bank's corporate office. "Your father doesn't waste time," Mrs. Patterson observed. "Look at how many people are suddenly involved in this meeting." Maya counted at least 6 people gathering in the conference room, all looking extremely serious. She recognized Mr. Sterling and one other person she thought might be an assistant manager, but the others were unfamiliar. They were all white, all inexpensive suits. It all looked like they wished they were anywhere else in the world. 20 minutes later, Maya saw Jennifer Walsh being escorted into the conference room by a woman she didn't recognize. Jennifer looked like she had been crying, and she kept her head down as she walked. Maya felt a moment of sympathy for the woman. Even after everything she had put her through, the meeting continued for another 30 minutes, with Maya and Mrs. Patterson watching the animated discussions through the glass walls. At one point, Maya saw her father stand up and lean across the table, speaking directly to Jennifer. Even from a distance, his body language conveyed barely controlled anger. Finally, the meeting broke up. Jennifer was escorted out of the building by the same woman who had brought her in, and she didn't return. The other executives filed out of the conference room looking defeated. Leaving only Marcus and Mr. Sterling, Maya's phone rang again. "Maya, I want you and Mrs. Patterson to come inside now. We're going to resolve this situation completely." When Maya and Mrs. Patterson entered the bank, the atmosphere was completely different from an hour earlier. Every employee they passed looked at Maya. With what appeared to be a mixture of respect and nervous concern, Mr. Sterling appeared at their side immediately, his earlier confidence replaced by obvious anxiety. "Miss Johnson," Mr. Sterling said, "your father is waiting in our conference room. Please follow me." They were led to the same conference room where Maya had watched the meeting unfold. Her father stood as they entered, and Maya could see the controlled fury still simmering beneath his professional exterior. "Dad," Maya said. And suddenly she was just a 17-year-old girl who had been through a traumatic experience. Marcus hugged her tightly. "Are you really okay?" he asked softly. "I'm okay now," Maya replied. Marcus introduced himself to Mrs. Patterson and thanked her for supporting Maya during the incident. Then he turned his attention to Mr. Sterling, and his demeanor became much cooler. "Mr. Sterling, I want you to explain to my daughter what we've discussed regarding Mrs. Walsh's employment status." Mr. Sterling looked sick. "Mrs. Walsh's employment with First National Bank has been terminated effective immediately. Her behavior toward you was completely unacceptable and violated multiple bank policies regarding customer service and discrimination." Maya felt a complex mix of emotions. She was glad that there were real consequences for Jennifer's actions, but she also felt sorry that a woman had lost her job over this incident. What policies did she violate? Maya asked. Mr. Sterling consulted a paper in front of him. "She violated our customer service standards by failing to provide professional assistance. She violated our non-discrimination policy by making assumptions based on your appearance rather than treating you as she would any other customer. She violated our fraud investigation procedures by making accusations without following proper verification protocols. And she violated our conflict resolution procedures by escalating a situation unnecessarily rather than seeking supervisory assistance." Maya was impressed by the thoroughness of the bank's investigation, even though it had taken place over less than an hour. "And what changes will you be making to ensure this doesn't happen to other customers?" Marcus asked. "We will be implementing mandatory sensitivity training for all customer-facing employees," Mr. Sterling replied. "We will also be reviewing our policies to ensure they provide clear guidance on handling transactions involving younger customers and family members of account holders." "That's good," Maya said. "But what about right now? What about the other employees who watched Mrs. Walsh treat me that way and didn't intervene?" Mr. Sterling looked surprised by the question. "I'm not sure what you mean." "There were other tellers working when this happened. There was a security guard who was ready to escort me out of the bank. Other employees could see what was happening. Did any of them think to help me or question Mrs. Walsh's behavior?" Marcus smiled slightly at his daughter's question. He had clearly raised her to think critically about systemic issues, not just individual bad actors. That's an excellent point, Marcus said. Mr. Sterling, what training do your employees receive about intervening when they witness inappropriate treatment of customers? Mr. Sterling was clearly unprepared for this line of questioning. We encourage employees to seek supervisory assistance if they observe problems. But no one did that today, Maya pointed out. So either your employees don't know when they're witnessing inappropriate behavior, or they don't feel empowered to report it. Mrs. Patterson watched this exchange with professional interest. She could see that Maya was learning to think like an advocate, addressing systemic problems rather than just seeking individual accountability. You're absolutely right, Mr. Sterling admitted. We need to examine our culture and training more comprehensively. Marcus leaned forward. Mr. Sterling, I want you to understand something. My daughter was humiliated in your bank today, but she handled herself with grace and dignity. She asked reasonable questions and made reasonable requests. Your employee responded by escalating the situation and making her feel like a criminal. I understand, Mr. Johnson, and I cannot express how sorry we are. Sorry isn't enough, Ma.